in Fort Myers, you guys are part of this pretty cool organization called the ACMA. Tell us a little bit about that.
I will.
Hang on, let's start over. Hang on, that was so bad. Welcome to the Fran Snyder Podcast, where I talk to artists and music fans to explore how music connects us through great stories and experiences. Brought to you by the Listening Room Network. Today's guest, Roy Schneider and Kim Mayfield, otherwise known as Reckless Saints. How are you guys?
We're great.
We are reckless.
Well, I'm great.
Yeah. Well, being reckless from home, I think, is probably less dangerous than being reckless on the road.
Much safer.
Yeah, sometimes I put 4 or 5 shakes of pepper in my soup.
I just got over like 2 weeks of stomach issues, so I'm backing off on the pepper myself.
No pepper.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a magic age where all of a sudden all the spicy food that you used to love no longer loves you back, but
I've heard there is.
Stage. I have hit that stage.
There's a threshold of how much.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that day.
Keeps pushing it, but.
Yeah, all those old folks telling me, hey, I love onions, but they don't love me. I love hot food, Indian food, but it doesn't love me. I used to just laugh at those people, and now I'm getting my comeuppance.
Yeah, man.
So where are you? Are you guys in Fort Myers?
Yes.
And is that been home forever? Or where are you guys from originally?
Well, do you want to go? Or we both have roots in Ohio from different times, same area, different times.
We were actually born within probably 10 miles of each other.
Yeah.
I was born in a suburb of Toledo, and he was born in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
And but different times, different years, and all that.
We didn't meet till we were in Florida.
Yeah.
We met online when it was still kind of like, I don't want to say taboo, but it was, people would still look at you funny if you said you met on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aren't you afraid they're going to kill you in your sleep, or because you met them on the internet? That was such a new.
Came close a few times.
Well, I was going to say that, but then you tell them that you're musicians and you've been couch surfing for 10 years, and that's can't be any.
Exactly.
It can't be any less dangerous than dating online.
Well, we met in like 2003.
Yes, I think it was 2003.
I'd been trying different websites, different dating sites, singles.com, whatever. I mean, I didn't advertise that, but mainly because I was a single parent at the time. And so I really wasn't, just going out. I had a kid. So it was a handy way to at least get a look at like who's out there. But I finally found a thing called, I kept getting these things that it just wasn't quite hitting it. And I thought, well, how can I find someone who knows like the crunchy granola person that I am? Like I need to get a little more specific. And there was a site called greensingles.com.
I found it in the back of a Vegetarian Times magazine.
And so it was kind of a hippie granola dating site kind of thing, more or less. And that was, the rest is history.
That's awesome. So how long ago you met in 2003? Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So you guys have been together a long time. And what brought each of you to Florida? I know it was 2 different paths at that time.
Yeah, we have different stories. Yeah, my parents divorced in Ohio. My mother remarried. My stepfather grew up in St. Pete. He wanted to come back to Florida. And this was after the blizzard of '78. So everybody was on board with that.
Yeah.
And we actually went to Fort Lauderdale. So I graduated high school in Fort Lauderdale. My senior year, we moved to Florida. That was hard.
Yeah, her senior picture, she looks pissed.
Like, as soon as I graduate, I'm going back to Ohio.
I'm not part of this.
Never happened.
Well, Fort Lauderdale will do that too. I lived in that area for a couple of years.
Yeah, I was there for 10 years. Then I was in Key West for about 15 years. And
yeah, that's different.
Back to Pompano Beach and then here. So, yeah.
When we first met online and then, well, the first time that I actually went to her home, I was just blown away because here she was in like suburbs
Pompano Beach.
Sort of, Pompano basically, it was, you know, I don't know, it was a kind of a very eclectic kind of neighborhood. And then you stepped into her backyard, and it was all fenced in, and it was just like a little piece of Key West back there. There were all these little paths and flowering, fruity trees, and it was like a little island wonderland in the middle of this suburban.
It was a fun time. My son was like 2 years old, and this place already had a lot of mature fruit trees. It was a beautiful backyard, so I just added to it. I started going to these exotic nurseries and putting in these palms here and this there, and a little fountain in the back. And it was fun time.
Now, when we met, I had only been in Florida a couple of years. I came down from Chicago. I had divorced, and my job kind of was coming to. I was working in the corporate world doing graphic design, 3D stuff, like you saw, like on Toy Story. I was using that same software. So it was really new, really cutting edge. I was making a lot of money and, you know, doing the corporate thing, but still able to be kind of an artist in the corporate world. We were like one of the departments that let you be a little looser. I didn't have to wear a suit and tie.
Nice.
That was kind of cool. But when that all kind of fell apart, I just, you know, here I had a kid. I didn't really have a solid direction because I was, you know.
And you're divorced.
Yeah, the marriage and the job ended at the same time. So I had to sell the house and do something. And, you know, right about that time, it was getting cold and drizzly up north again. And my mom reminded me that she had a place down here. She was a snowbird at the time. For anyone who doesn't know that, just, you know, well, yeah. Just like it sounds, they come down when it gets cold. And I didn't know Florida at all. I had been to Disney World. I thought, well, maybe, you know, is it like Disney World all over Florida? I assumed it would be a lot like California, and it's not.
No, definitely not. So I didn't know that you had done like digital art, because I know you had a career, or at least a part-time career as a cartoonist, and anybody who's been part of our network for a decent amount of time has probably seen your house concert cartoons that we collaborated on.
Yeah.
You know, sort of making fun at sort of the house concert culture, or the culture that has not yet embraced house concerts. So those things are fun. We used to pepper those in the monthly newsletters, and now they go out a little more sporadically. But yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about that cartoon stage. When was that? When were you? Because you were syndicated as a cartoonist for a while.
Yeah, well, actually, once I moved down to Florida, when all that happened, I was in the process. I was working with the Washington Post Writers Group on a development deal. That was my first hit after sending them out for over 10 years. That was the first syndicate that actually, you know, I'd gotten a few kind letters of encouragement, but never anything that really stuck until that. They took me on for a development deal. And in the long run, I walked away from that. And that's a little long story. You know, I think sometimes it could have gone differently, but basically I was ready to launch, and they were not ready to launch me. And I was convinced I could find a way to get launched, and I did manage to get launched by United Media later that year. So I was just down to Florida, and I thought, oh, this is great. You know, I'm down here where it's warm and sunny, and now I'm getting syndicated, and so maybe in the next couple of years we'll be, you know, my plan was that I could do the strip, which you can do from home, you can do from wherever you want, and then music-wise, I could just write and record and do whatever I wanted, and not worry about whether or not it made me any money. You know,
right.
I could just focus on the music as a really big, important, consistent hobby, more or less,
right.
Getting it out to the world. But I thought I would fund everything with the strip, and of course, I have this real talent for reaching for career choices that are things that are like a sinking ship. In some ways, music is never going to completely sink, but you know, the CDs and all that. But I like to grab onto things that are going out of style, I guess. I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist, just as newspapers were kind of going the way of the buggy whip.
But you did it.
Right. But I did it. You know, I just I always loved them as a kid, and I just that was, of all the things you could draw or write, that was the thing I really wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've pursued your many loves for a long time, and a lot of people spend their life making money and ignoring the things that they love the most. So, you know, there's
been able to survive doing the
When the strip lives on, on comics.com. Is that the site?
Yeah, it's called The Humble Stumble.
The
for
Humble
anyone
Stumble. You can catch it in reruns in perpetuity.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of them were written in sequence, and the sequences have been chopped up, and you'll see a Christmas cartoon in June or something. So, but they're still out there. They're still running it.
He still has
and they
fans.
still send me a trickle of money for running it online and clicking on banner ads and stuff.
And every so often somebody will discover it and like it's brand new. And
so let's switch over to music. You've been putting out CDs for at least 10 years, if not more. I guess we've probably known each other longer than that from you joining
wow.
our website. But
yeah.
you've been a touring singer-songwriter for about how long now? Can you take a guess at that?
I think the first year
this would have been 12 years, but I guess it's been 11 because we didn't really tour this past year.
I think back in '08 was the first year we decided to go on the road, and it was just him.
Yeah.
I was the driver, manager, merch person.
Gotcha.
But then I invited her to play mandolin with me on one song, and she caught the bug.
And so you guys both play various instruments at this point. You're quite an accomplished guitar player, but you also play banjo, mandolin. What else is up your sleeve there, Roy?
Well, when we record, I love to play bass, but I can't really do that on stage. And harmonica. And
he plays drums on some of our recordings.
And the drums, I do love. That was my first thing, really. When I was 12, that was the thing that made me catch the bug in the beginning. Playing "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" with my friend John on the organ and my other friend Brett on the guitar. That little riff over and over and over and over. But I was gonna be Charlie Watts and then some. But singing made me kind of move more toward guitar, I think, because I wanted to sing. So I love that I can still. At a certain point in high school age, I started thinking, well, I got to pick. Am I a guitar player? Am I a drummer? What am I? I got to decide. Like when people say, what kind of music do you like? I used to puzzle like, gee, do I like rock or do I? Yeah, because I like this other stuff too. And then one day I think it was really a revelation to realize it's okay to like a variety of stuff.
Yeah, I would say that like listening to your stuff, it feels almost like the primary influence, or at least that might not have been your favorite records growing up or whatever, but the feel that I get from your music is kind of like a country blues feel. Was that something that feels right, or how would you describe it?
Sounds good to me.
I mean,
all the stuff I listened to and learned from and crammed it all together. Yeah, it'd be kind of a.
There's rock influence. There's singer-songwriter.
Somewhere between folk music and Woodstock era rock and roll.
A musical old soul. He liked all this stuff that was from before his time, even though he was a child of the 80s,
Well, that was part of it. I think I was really trying to quantum leap. I had a very rough time in the 80s, as we talked about. That I was institutionalized and stuff like that, and it was an ugly bit. And I think I was just trying to get out of the world I was in. So I was trying to dive backwards and somehow go back to the late 60s, but it didn't quite work.
Yeah, well, certainly the majority of what you do fits pretty squarely under the Americana massive umbrella, right? I mean, that genre has pretty much swallowed most of modern music at this point.
Well, because I think a lot of us grew up listening to different stuff. I mean, because generations before that, it depended where you lived and what the local radio station played. But I think once they started cross-pollinating and rock stations across the country would play, everybody heard Led Zeppelin.
Well, when I was a kid, the Eagles were rock and roll, and then I found out that they were Americana, and now I found out that they're easy listening. So
now they're golden oldies.
If you are enjoying this podcast, can you pause for a moment to like, review, and subscribe? Please help the world discover our music community and the wonderful artists we support. Your feedback makes a difference. So, all right. So you guys have been touring. You guys have done a ton of house concerts, probably in and out of our network through fans and that kind of stuff as well. But just like all of us, you had to put the brakes on touring in 2020. I'm curious, what are the silver linings from 2020 for you? I've been amazed because we tend to paintbrush 2020 as a bad year. But it's hard to find somebody who doesn't have a silver lining, something that 2020 presented itself as an opportunity. And I'm curious what that might be for you guys.
I've always wanted to write more songs. I struggled and struggled. And man, this year they just came so easy. I wrote a bunch of songs. A lot of them are a little dark, COVID nightmare type things, but yeah, I still like them. I feel good about them, and that may not have happened. Probably wouldn't have happened.
More creativity. Do you feel that it's as much just having the time at home and not the perpetual emotion that's enabled you to be creative, or is it something else going on, you think?
Well, the whole thing, the time, the solitude.
It's unusual to sit still for so long. Usually we're in and out all year long.
When we're touring, and I'm not complaining, I tend to take more charge of like where we're going, when we need to be there, and all the arrangements. And
someone's gotta.
Yeah, so there really isn't a lot of time for me to just sit and think about, play with chords and think about words and stuff. That doesn't happen when we're touring. So
you're able to take off your CEO hat.
No booking, no publicity. I'm like, God, this is so great.
For the first month though, it was weird. She didn't know quite what
because that's my routine.
She'd sit down at the computer and go,
what do I need to do today? What do I need to push? What do I need to promote? What do I need to reach out to? Hotels, what are we doing? That's just, it's kind of a blessing.
And for you, Roy, more time to record for sure.
Yeah, and I have gotten some writing done, but not the kind I want to put out there, but stuff that I needed to write for me. Like I've definitely got some very angry political songs I've written that I haven't really shared, but I needed to get them out because I have just been doing this with the news phone like for a long time, and I'm without getting too specific, I predict I won't feel the need to do that as much pretty soon, and I'm excited about that. But I'm straying again. As far as silver linings, I have gotten some writing done. I gotta say, I'm really grateful. We've got friends and associates who know all the different stuff that I do. And as soon as we lost all our gigs, it seemed like people started to say, well, people who maybe had said, well, I've got this song, I wanted you to maybe see if you could play some banjo on it for me. Or I got this record I'm going to make, and I was thinking about having you draw the cover. Well, suddenly all these people started calling those things in and saying, hey, you want to draw that cover? You want to work on that song? So I've been able to, while I haven't been able to work as much on our stuff as I would like to, that is unfortunate, but fortunate because, I've still been able to work, and I've been able to work right here in the studio, keep our heads above water. We've been playing some gigs together and some other stuff, but it's just nice to be able to do that, and that these people were good enough to see that this might be a good time to.
The slew of talents that you have, I guess, are serving you well. It's great. It's great to be. You're like a Renaissance man. It's like Renaissance man. I can play anything. I can draw anything. I got you covered.
Which really just probably comes from having ADD.
Yeah.
But
yes.
I don't know if I'm like super good at anything, but I'm pretty good at a whole lot of things. So I can, market myself however I need to, I suppose. In those ways.
I can tell you the wheels are spinning all the time here.
Yeah. All these artists have, figured out other ways to survive besides touring, whether it's doing live streams and Patreon and doing all the things that, using their latent skills or latent talents. I'm curious, looking ahead, let's say 6 months from now, and let's say that there is close to the same opportunity to tour as there was, let's say a year out from now, that the touring is back to normal. Of course, it won't be back to normal, but let's just say that the landscape is similar to what it was a year or two ago. Do you feel that what you've gone through this year and the other skill sets that you've developed and income streams, that is going to change the way that you tour? Like, assuming that you could go out there and do exactly what you were doing 2 years ago, how do you think you're going to do it differently now that you've gone through 2020? Because it's a wake up call, right? Like, I don't have to do it this way anymore. So if I have that option, what am I going to do?
What, you want to go?
Let's ask the CEO first.
I feel like we did a lot of chasing our tail. I think we were doing way too much chasing our tail. It was disorganized, the touring, and a lot of dates weren't filled. So we were having to spend, we're hemorrhaging money on the road because there's no gigs, but we can't go home yet because we got to go to this place next in 2 days. And I always understood the whole touring smarter thing, but it's really kicked in now. I'm like, I don't think I want to do that again. I don't, if we're going to tour, it's going to have to be a whole lot more efficient. It's going to have
I think it came from like wanting the gig and then having faith, like something would come in and you'd think, well, that's a few days after our last gig, but it sounds like a fun show. So we'll take it and just be confident that we can fill those dates in those places between. And then it wouldn't happen a lot of times. So, or we do a great tour and we do all right. We'd have, you always have some hit and miss. There's good shows and not so good shows. But there a few times we go out west where it seems like we do well out west. Our music seems to hit well out there. But then we'd end the tour somewhere in New Mexico and then drive for 3 or 4 days straight. So by the time we got home, we've spent everything we've made on gas and hotels and meals. Touring smarter, maybe for real this time, or maybe fewer tours in the year, but try to pack them,
and continue this, trying to making money at home, working more at home definitely is in the future. I think.
So I don't ever want to stop performing and or touring, and because part of it is, you want to get your music out, but it's also, after a while, we all get kind of hooked on it, don't we? You get to see different stuff and meet new people and see different scenery and.
Right.
Moving around can be fun, especially when you have 2 little dogs with you.
And we have just an amazing network of friends that we've made through house concerts primarily, but also venues and stuff where they invite us to stay longer sometimes. They're very hospitable. They're very like-minded people, love artists, love creative process, and they encourage that, and they just become friends. I don't know. I
feel like touring
feel blessed.
Has really given texture, and enhancement to our lives. We've gotten educated. We did a show in Ohio, and the very next day, they wanted to take us into town and show us the Amish village and that kind of stuff. People want to show you where they live.
And some have come visited us. Some have come and stayed with us here, and we've stayed with them even when we didn't do a show. Just coming through. So. That has been wonderful. I will miss that a lot more than anything.
What do you mean you will miss?
Well, we're still gonna. I know, but it's not gonna be like we were going. Probably half the year we'd be gone, and
you're not gonna be able to see everybody, and that's probably what you're alluding to. Is like you're not gonna be able to see everybody every year, or
right.
The pace is probably gonna slow down, or you're gonna have to be more selective, which is kind of my operating theory on the way things are going. And with Listening Room Network, I want to enable hosts to collaborate together so that when you get one booking, that can turn into 2 or 3 without you having to fill the dates, but like creating these little springboards, these connections where you get a block of dates at a time instead of one date and then try to fill the gaps on your own every single time. So that's kind of, because I believe that your situation is not unique. Almost everybody who's got any experience on the road is going to be more selective going forward. It's like, okay, I dug in 2020 and figured out how to survive without touring. So now when I tour, I'm going to be much smarter about it. And I'm going to say no more often. And I'm going to make sure that when I go, it's not going to be marginally profitable. It's going to be, I'm going to make a living. I'm not going to just play gigs and hope that I make a living. Right. So yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's, again, one of those silver linings of 2020. It's like this wake up call for a lot of musicians that's actually going to result in a better future for them. Because you get to the point where you've been doing this for 10 years and it's all and the thought of changing how you do things is scary as hell. Like, could you have made the decision to do to take a year off like you did for 20? There's no way, right? You could not have said, you know what, we're going to stop for a year. No.
No.
Let's just stop it right now and cancel everything. I mean, we did have some pretty sweet shows, on the books that we had to let go, and that was painful. Yes. But I know a lot of people did. Anybody who was touring probably had to let go of.
Yes.
Right. So that's for me, that's exciting though. It's just the idea that, hey, this could actually make the next 5 years of your life way, way better than they might have otherwise been.
And one of the other things I wanted to mention, what struck me, is it kind of leveled the playing field, because you're talking about, the superstars down to people like us. We're all forced to do live stream. That's it. So we're all like, doing live shows on Facebook. I mean, some people were doing
in a way
ticketed,
but some people's live streams were bringing in 50 people, and some people's live streams were bringing in 50,000 people. But
that is the difference. Yes.
Taylor Swift can sit in her living room and make,
Right.
But the accessibility was the same,
Right.
Yeah. All you got is a little phone or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
We know live streaming's not going to go away, but I'm curious how musicians are going to maybe try to combine the two experiences. And so you'll go out and play a live show and try to live stream for people who can't be at that show. Is that something that's on your radar? Have you already figured out how you're going to do it, or?
Well, I think it's definitely on the radar. It might be more challenging in certain venues, when we get back out in there with all the people. Having the camera sitting in front of us might be awkward. But
there's always, it seems like, if you have a phone, depending, I don't mean to, but like we have one of those little gorilla tripods, where you can wrap it around whatever. And it's got the thing that we're using right now with you is a little grabber that goes on top of the tripod for the phone. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully we can find a little spot to.
Yeah, but I think psychologically, I think there's going to be an adjustment. The idea of playing for two distinct audiences. Some things that work for the live audience aren't going to work for the people watching on camera, and vice versa. I haven't messed with that at all, but I'm just curious if that's going to be tougher to do well than some people.
The interaction with the live stream audience was going to be more challenging. So I would say they would just have to be the fly on the wall, and you focus on the room.
What's on the horizon for you? Or are you guys, do you have something recently just out, or something that you're working on that's close to fruition? Tell us what's next. We
got some Reckless Saints stuff. But then we're also, like, Kim has never had her own record, and she's been writing a lot, so it seems like, it makes sense. We're kind of designing a record for her. Then I've got some specific stuff that's all about my time when I was locked up and straight as a kid. I didn't really want to push that into our thing.
In Fort Myers, you're part of this really cool organization called the ACMA. Tell me a little bit about what they do and how you got involved and some of the stuff that they're doing.
Well, it's the Americana Community Music Association. It's a nonprofit organization that's local music lovers. One was a venue owner. One was just a huge music enabler fan, house concert hostess. And one's my mom. And, and one is our dear friend, Cindy. Yeah, they use a local church. It's an All Faiths church.
Okay.
So they use that space on Saturday nights and host touring artists. And then they have local artists open for them. So it's a great way for the local people to meet and be heard, and meet to touring artists and learn from that. They also have a songwriter circle on Sunday afternoon. I think they've been doing it virtually. There's a group that meets on Zoom, and they share their songs, and they're still doing that.
In addition to doing all the concerts that they do, I mean, they've gone from a small place that had, 20 or 30 seats, and then it got bigger up to maybe as much as 50, and then it got overcrowded, and then they moved over to the church, and it's just really grown, a lot, and more people. It was really getting pretty big before COVID hit, and hopefully we'll get back to that. But in addition to all the shows that they have, they also, they've had me come in among many other people doing workshops and stuff like that. They also just hosted, we did our first real ACMA in-person show recently. They like co-hosted it. It was the Alliance for the Arts and the ACMA kind of got together. We played at the Alliance. They had a beautiful stage and a lawn.
Outdoor,
and they
yes.
outside, and they put that's where the lawn usually is. But they sold squares. You know, they drew squares in white on the grass for distancing and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's great too, because you feel like you really got a huge audience because everybody's spread out, and it just goes as far as the eye can see. But we had a good time playing on the lawn.
Well, yeah, people are finding ways to keep the music going. So it's great to hear that that's happening for you guys in Fort Myers.
It's Americana and then CMA.org.
All right. Well, I will link to your websites in the credits. This will be on YouTube as well as podcast apps. Roy, Kim, Reckless Saints, great to catch up with you, and wishing you a fabulous 2021.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks, Fran. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Fran Snyder Podcast. Please subscribe, like, or share to help your friends discover this community. Also, I'd love to hear from you with any feedback or suggestions you have. And if you'd like to learn more about house concerts and listening rooms around the world, please visit and join listeningroomnetwork.com. You can email me from there. See you next time on the Fran Snyder Podcast.